On this edition of Issues and Insiders, we meet with an American literary agent who has been working to promote Korean literary works beyond their national borders. Thank you for tuning in. You're watching Monday's edition of Issues and Insiders. I'm Min Sunhee. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with a literary agent who has been seeking to connect Korean works of literature with a broader base of readers in the West. I have Barbara Zitwer live on the line. Barbara, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Right, Barbara, let's begin then with details about the Korean writers that you have introduced the global literary scene.
I've introduced Hyung-suk Shin, Young Lee, Hwan Pyeon-sung, Ji Young-gang, Han Kang, Yu Zhang-zhang, Sun-mi Wang, Ha Young-kyun, Hyung Ran-jo, Young Ha Kim, Un-soo Kim, and that's just a few. And I'm very excited about new authors who have never been published in the West, who are coming out this year. So Young Park, A-won Kim. So it's very exciting.
Right, and before we delve into details about new and upcoming writers as well, Barbara, walk us through your personal journey with Korean culture and your ultimate decision to take the country's literary works beyond borders.
Well, really, my personal journey started through books. Korean books and Korean literature was my passport to learning about Korea. And after I read these books and these authors, I just was so astounded by them, and no one had heard of them in the publishing business in the West. And I fell in love with the literature, and so after I succeeded for a while, I decided that it was time for me to come to Korea. So the books brought me to Korea, and then I fell in love with the land and the nature and the people and the food and the way of life. And I love Temple Stay. I discovered Temple Stay. And every time I come to Korea, I go on a Temple Stay. So I felt it was my duty as a literary agent and a lover of books to share what I had discovered. And I was so excited. It was a real jolt because it's not often that you discover something so new and different. And every book that I read was mind-blowing and fabulous. And so my love of books brought me to Korean literature, and that brought me to Korea.
I see your furry friend has just joined us. Barbara, talking about the books now, what were some of the early books that you read? I understand Han Kang's Vegetarian was one of the first books that you read, is that correct? What was it about these early books that made you decide to take them beyond Korea's borders?
Well, I think they were very different. They were new voices. They were fresh. The Vegetarian, I read it. It took me a long time to get the full book translated, so I read partials. Please Look After Mom, Hyung-suk Shin's novel. I only read 20 pages in English, but I just thought they were astounding in the way they were written, and they were different. They told stories from different points of view. They were very metaphorical, and they had a voice and a flavor that was new to me. If you've never eaten kimchi, you don't know what it tastes like. And once you eat it, you just can't stop eating it. So it was a new kind of writing, a new voice that I identified with. And I think also a lot of the authors that I represented and who really moved me were women writers. And these women writers really were the beginning of the women's movement, I think, in Korea, like 20 years ago, and Ji Young-gang, Our Happy Time. So I am someone who is a feminist, definitely, and I lived through the women's movement. I was very young, but I was very motivated by women and women's struggle and women's voices. And all the women in my family, my mother, my aunts, my cousins, every woman always worked. They were very independent. And I think I really identified with the women writers and the struggles, whether it was the vegetarian and this woman turning into a tree, and Please Look After Mom, about one mother, but it was about all mothers, and it was heartbreaking. And I think it was the women writers and who really dominated Korean publishing. Sunmi Wang, The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly, which was a children's book in Korea, but it was sold as an adult novel all over the world. And when I read that book, Little Leafy, the hen who wanted to fly, it was beautiful, and it was very unique and different. And I think because I am a feminist and I'm a strong woman and I advocate for women, I was very moved by all these women writers.
So aside from these books that also share a women's perspective on certain matters, Barbara, statistics do actually show that the global appetite for Korean literature has been rising in recent years. How do you explain this phenomenon?
I think that once people started reading and becoming familiar with Korean books, they liked them, publishers loved them, critics loved them, but it was definitely, I would say, when Parasite, the film, won the Oscar, and when we were stuck in COVID lockdown for 3 years, and readers all over the world, people all over the world, viewers, discovered K-dramas, and then Squid Games, there is a definite moment after Parasite, during COVID, K-dramas, everyone in the world fell in love with Korea, wants to study Korean, just went berserk. And so the books were there and they were sprouting up and people were getting more and more interested, but on a mass level, I think that it was definitely the film and lockdown and Squid Games was such a phenomenon there that everyone wanted more and more and more, and they wanted to read more Korean books. So this was a huge boost, I think, for Korean authors.
Barbara, you also wrote a book about Korea. I believe it's called The Korean Book of Happiness. Could you tell us a bit about your work?
Yes. Oh, thank you. I'll show you the cover if you like, if you can see it.
I can, right.
Okay. So the reason I wrote this book was that I was handling a lot of different authors. I started with very literary, and then I was working with thriller writers and mysteries, and I kept discovering more genres, and I realized that Korean literature was as vast as English language literature. I mean, it's every genre, every subject, it's enormous. And I was aware as a literary agent and businesswoman that there were very, very successful books called The Little Book of Haegi, which was a like comforting little book about how to be happy from Denmark. Then there was Ikigai from Japan. So there were these small books which introduced readers to a culture in a very commercial way. So I said to my young associate partner, Sue Park, who's been working with me for almost 4 years now, I said, Sue, let's find a book like Ikigai or The Little Book of Haegi from Korea, because I thought that would be a great book, a nonfiction book that would appeal to readers and be able to teach them about Korea in a very informal, friendly manner. And they wouldn't have to leave their sofa, like my dog Lexi over there. She could read her book and she's dreaming about being in Korea now and eating Korean barbecue. Anyway, I couldn't find this book. It didn't exist. So I thought to myself, well, I've been there like 5 times. I know Korea. I've learned so much. My friends call me Miss Korea in New York in publishing. I said, I'm just going to write it myself. So that is the reason I wrote the book. And as it developed and I started working with different editors, they suggested that I add recipes, and they said, okay, add the recipes, and what Korean food do you cook, Barbara? I said, I can't cook this food, but my friends can. And so I was very grateful to my wonderful authors who gave me recipes, favorite recipes of theirs. I wanted to impart some of that so that readers could feel and taste and kind of touch what I fell in love with and what I found in Korea. And I'm so happy about the Korean edition of the book because it's such a validation to be published in Korea, in Korean.
Right, and
So,
beyond literature then, Barbara, regarding Korean culture, what do you suppose are some of our what is the unique appeal of Korean culture, do you think? You mentioned temple stay earlier on.
well, temple stay is an absolutely amazing experience. I think that what do I love about Korean culture? Well, I think that nature is a big part of nature is everywhere. And I went to the Furniture Museum, which is in Seoul, and it's very beautiful to see how nature is incorporated in the courtyard, in the traditional home, the way people sit on the floor. It's very tranquil. The traditional Korean homes are almost like Buddhist temples themselves, and all the furniture is put away and it's taken out from closets. And I learned about this, and I felt a camaraderie with this way of living because naturally I don't like clutter and I like simplicity and I love nature. So I think nature, the way Korean culture, they don't try and wall it in like the Chinese. They don't miniaturize it like the Japanese. They bring nature as it is and it's incorporated into everyday life.
Barbara, you're too kind with your words. Now, moving forward, Barbara, you forecast a Korean Nobel Prize winner in literature in the future. Are there any candidates on your mind?
Oh, well, definitely. I think that I have three candidates, and of course, my favorite, I have to say, because I've just read so much of her work, and she's so prolific and has written so many books and essays and short stories, is Kyung-Suk Shin. And I think that her writing is so filled with humanity and poetry. And she also, each book is very different, one from another. She doesn't repeat herself ever. And she tells me all the time that and I've seen her at book readings where she says that she hopes people will become kinder to other people after they read her book. And I think that's remarkable. I think so, and she's written so much. I think Ji Young Bang is just a brilliant writer who is a champion for for human beings. I mean, all her work, and I haven't read every book of hers, hasn't been translated yet. I think Hong Kong is a fabulous writer, and she has not written as many books as the other writers. I think the author of The Whale, which The Whale was shortlisted for the Booker Prize this year. And I read the translation by Ji Young Kim, and I think it's an absolute masterpiece.
Right, and speaking about translation, Barbara, there are many who've underscored the importance of proper translation to allow for a greater expansion of Korean literature overseas. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, translation, without translators and excellent translators, there would be no way that any Korean book would be read by anyone in the world because most people do not read Korean. And so translation, I became very familiar with translation and translators through my work. And you really, what can I say? I think translators are magicians. I don't know how they do what they do, because you can't take a literal translation of a book. They are alchemists, and I don't know how they are able to take, and this is high literature. This is not just, very commercial writing. And so to take a very literary book and translate it into a completely different language, which has different style and phrasing and words, and I really don't know how they do what they do. They're amazing. I think it's very important, and a big problem early on was there weren't enough really good translators from Korean into English, and there still are not enough translators of Korean books into other languages. For instance, in Norway, I mean, how many Korean translators translate from Korean into Norwegian? Maybe one or two, hardly any. So it's very important that the English language translation is impeccable, because very often other translators in other countries translate from the English so it's like from Korean to English to world Arabic. There are more and more Korean translators, but it's rare. So oftentimes it's a question of, are we going to have this book translated into Finnish or not? And my authors they love the English translation, and they say it's fine, because that's the way it is until there are more translators for all languages. But it's worked out very well, because the translators and interpreters, and I don't speak any Korean, but except I can say 2 words. And I love the relationship between an interpreter, my Korean author, or my Korean friend who doesn't speak English, and myself. It's like having a party, the 3 of us together. And it's a very unique relationship. And I love interpreters. And I hope that I think what Parasite did was to have the first time a film had subtitles that won an Oscar. A foreign film in Korean with subtitles won an Oscar. And I hope that more and more people, work with interpreters and listen to. I love the beauty of the Korean language. I love the musicality and the way people talk. And
Right,
so
indeed.
I think it's a lot of fun. I love it.
It's
wonderful.
Right, the art of translation, it's a daunting task. And I love your metaphor. Translators are alchemists. Moving on then, Barbara, to my final question. You spoke earlier about how you are searching for new and upcoming Korean writers. Could you tell us a bit about this particular venture?
Yes. My junior partner, Sue Park, she and I have started the Charm Agency in Korea. Specifically, she's Korean. She's living in America now, and she went to school here, but she has a lot of family in Korea. So she started the Charm Agency, which is an arm of the Barbara Zitwer Agency, to look for unpublished new Korean authors and to help them get published in Korea and also throughout the world. So it's our first author that we're very excited about is an author who wrote, her name is Barbara Zva, and she wrote A Prescription for Memory Care, which was published by Ginkgo Tree in the fall of 2023, and it's being translated now. But I think that there are so many Korean authors and writers who are unknown and want to connect with the outside world. And also, there are not many Western style literary agents in Korea. And we are very much interested, Sue and I, in teaching people how to communicate with the world and become more Western style of business and literary agenting, because globally, people around the world work in a certain way. A lot of Korean publishers don't really know, they don't speak English, and they don't really know the ways and what's standard and easy. And a lot of my authors never met their editors, never communicated with them. The books are just sold by publishers almost as products. But we encourage and want our authors to communicate with all their editors and their readers all over the world. So I'm so excited because So Young Park, who wrote Snow Globe, is being published this month in America, and Delacorte Random House is flying her to New York and America, and Young Min Lee Comfort is her translator. And this book, Delacorte Random House, which is a jumbo book, a jumbo publisher, they see it as a Korean Hunger Games.
Right, I see. Much to look forward to, Barbara.
It's fantastic. So I'm looking for the the Korean J.K. Rowling. I'm looking for I want a Korean author to be a household name, not just be read by the literary elite or the more literary people. And that's coming. It's happening.
Right, of course. With all thanks to your efforts, Barbara. Thank you so much for making the time to join us live. And goodbye to Leslie as well, your friend there at the back.
Thank you so much.
All right, Barbara.
감사합니다.
Right, 감사합니다.
안녕하세요.
Right, 안녕히 가세요, Barbara. Thank you so much for your time today. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. We return same time tomorrow. Do join us then.